Hey everyone, welcome to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's January 24th. It is 2024. The 24th in the 24th. Here we go. We got 8-game NBA slate to talk about here on today's podcast, joined today by TJ. TJ, what's happening, my friend?
Oh, not too much. Doing pretty well. Looking forward to diving into the 8-game slates. I got a ticket for the $2,500 Millie Maker, so that should be fun to build a lineup for. And ready to dive in. I see got my guy Richie Smalls in chat talking about Echo on Disney Plus. Loved that show. Got to do some interviews at the red carpet premiere in Toronto. So yeah, life's good. Busy as all heck, but life is very good.
That's a good disc golf disc, the Echo. I like it. A little flippy, but good disc. So it gets a streamlined disc. There you go. So plugged MVP disc, making waves with the Echo. Oh, I'm all full of jokes. Michael Porter Jr. has ruined my NBA night, so I'm ready to tackle this Wednesday slate as well. Nice little 8-gamer, only a couple teams on the back-to-back. A lot of injury news that we'll be waiting throughout the day. Some big injury news that we'll be waiting for in that Dallas game. So let's dive in and have some fun. We get started with Minnesota at Washington. 232 total in this game. Minnesota 11-point favorite. Clark out for Minnesota. Hayward and Williams out. Martin and Richards questionable here. Let's start here. Oh, no. I was looking at Charlotte. Nobody. Washington's good to go. Any interest here in the Minnesota side?
Yeah, I think anytime a team faces Washington, we have to have a fair amount of interest in them. And so this whole starters group looks a little bit underpriced. Anthony Edwards at $8,700 has a huge ceiling. Cat obviously showed just the other day he's got a massive ceiling. Gobert is still under 8K. Mike Conley down to 5,300. And then if this game turns ugly, Naz Reid at 4,900, if he gets a little bit of extra blow run, could be an absolute smash play. So I think any of the starters, even like McDaniels, as fine as a salary saver, are totally in play. And then Naz Reid as well. I would probably want to make a group that if I play Naz Reid in a lineup, I'm not playing Edwards, Towns, Gobert, or Conley. But any of the starters I'm fine with playing together.
Yeah, Gobert really disappointed the other night against Charlotte. One of the best matchups you can get. Well, right back to another phenomenal matchup here going up against Washington. So if you were on him the other night, I think that this is definitely a spot you can jump back on and just kind of chalk that up as a bad game. Cat had an incredible game the other night, so no one else kind of produced as much. So I don't think Cat goes nuclear again. So I think you could take shots on Edwards or Gobert. I don't hate Conley. I think Conley is more of a cash game play. But, yeah, I mean, that's really it for me. I don't mind the McDaniels call. He plays 30 minutes, fast-paced game. Good matchup for sure. Washington side of this one, I mean, this rotation is all over the place. We did see Gafford come back, play 30 minutes against Denver. We were riding the Marvin Bagley train, and now with Gafford back, I don't think you can touch that until Bagley gets into that $4,500 range, 4K range. Maybe we take some shots on him in large field tournaments. Looks like he's gonna have good usage off the bench, but an ugly team to play in DFS. Like Jordan Poole played 28 minutes the other night and scored 4 fantasy points. Any interest here in the Washington side?
Probably not. Is in a one lineup build, definitely not. In 150, Poole and Gafford both have prices that I would maybe take a shot on. Poole less so, but Gafford at 5,800 with both Towns and Gobert there, he's probably going to have to play a very solid minute allotment if this one stays close and he can stay out of foul trouble. So Gafford would be the one I would be most interested in, but nobody that's going to be cracking my lineup in a single entry.
All right, moving on. We got Charlotte at Detroit. 235 total in this one. Detroit a 3-point favorite. Hey, like I just said, Hayward and Williams out. Martin and Richards questionable. Detroit is good to go. Cade Cunningham probable to return in this game. They did say that he could have a minutes limit here, but there hasn't been anything definite. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's start with the Charlotte side. Rozier gone in a trade. It doesn't sound like Lowry's going to play for this team unless they can't trade him again. I think it's Brandon Miller's season at 6,100 here against Detroit. I think he's going to be the guy scoring with LaMelo. I mean, just a phenomenal situation now for a lot of these Charlotte players with Rozier gone.
Yeah, I wish he was still a little bit cheaper, just so like if he was 5,500 again, we could just press the walk button and move on with our day at the small forward position. But 6,100, it does at least make you think about it. But I still think he's a phenomenal play. Bridges and Ball totally in play. If Martin is out and if Nick Richards is out, like this team is going to be stupidly thin. I don't even really know at this point who we'd be wanting to take big shots on. Like PJ Washington would be a for sure if Nick Richards is out. Maybe Mensa becomes in play at a flat 3K. Like I don't think I really ever want to play McGowan's, but he might end up being out there projecting for 30 plus minutes if all these guys are out.
Yeah, I think LaMelo has to be one of the top plays on the entire slate, even at 9,600, because like his fantasy point production is 1.47 fantasy points per minute, 5% usage increase with Rozier off the floor this season. So like LaMelo just absolutely smashes with no Rozier. And now we're getting a matchup with Detroit. I mean, I think that this is one of the best matchups LaMelo is going to have. So Bridges is another person averaging 1.25 fantasy points per minute with Rozier off the floor. So I think those would be my two main targets. I think Miller has upside. And then, like you said, if we do get Martin and Richards out, like I think that's when you're going to be looking at playing some PJ Washington. And I think you're going to be looking at Nick Smith here at 4,100. He's really cheap. And if those guys are out, no Rozier, I think Nick Smith, he was already kind of getting some extra minutes. I just don't think they run like Ish Smith out there. So I think that it will be Nick Smith instead of Ish Smith on Charlotte as far as like guard situation.
If we get, even on an 8-game slate here, if we get Richards and Cody Martin out, I honestly feel like it's perfectly viable to play 4 Hornets. Like you can play Ball, Miller, Bridges, and Washington.
Yeah, and like so Richie asked in chat, how many Hornets is your max? Well, if Richards and Martin end up sitting, I think 3. I think you could play 3 Charlotte players in this game. If those guys play, I think I'd cap it at 2.
If both of those guys are out, I think it's 4 for me. And if they're both in, then I think it's 2 is probably ideal, but you can go up to 3 if you're game stacking.
All right, let's go to the Detroit side. Cade Cunningham probable. Obviously, we don't know what he'll be looking at minutes wise. It was a knee injury. They did say he's been practicing a little bit, but I would assume that they're very careful here with Cade. You know, this is a very young team just in general. Detroit. What are your thoughts here on the Pistons side?
Yeah, especially if we get word that Cade's minutes limit is, going to be 20 to 25 minutes, something like that. I think you can definitely take a shot on Ivy again. He's been crushing, and while obviously it'll be a hit when Cunningham's out there, I'd assume they'd have some sort of stagger. And if Cade is limited, Ivy could probably still have a pretty big game. $6,800 for Jalen Duren, I think, is a fantastic price tag. I like him quite a bit. I know I want to play a bunch of Charlotte guys, and so I probably want to make sure I'm running it back with at least 1 or 2 Detroit players here. And so Duren would probably be my first choice, but a $5,800 Bogdanovich, that's totally in play. $5,500 Isaiah Stewart. He came off the bench last game, and it ended up being the best thing to ever happen to him. Obviously, we can't expect 5 blocks and 2 steals every game, but 8 free throws, 9 shot attempts, 6 threes. I think he would even be a little bit in play here against a team like Charlotte. I probably want to set a rule. I only play one of Stewart and Duren, but I think they're both in play.
I just, again, want to hammer home, like, this is a spot with Cunningham coming back. It's going to potentially hurt some people. We saw, like, Thompson get some extra run. I don't think Cade coming back hurts Duren. and Charlotte's one of the best big matchups for bigs in the NBA. So I think Duren is probably my favorite play here, but I love the Isaiah Stewart call. I think Isaiah Stewart is a phenomenal GPP play on this slate. I'm probably going to stay away from the guards and just focus on the big men in this spot. Because I want to run, I'm going to have so much exposure to Charlotte. I'm going to want to play at least one Detroit player here.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I am in the exact same boat as you. I'm honestly even tempted to just throw in if we get all these guys out for Charlotte, I am tempted to just go 4 Charlotte players, 2 Detroit players, and hope this game stays somewhat close.
All right, moving on. We got Memphis at Miami, 214 total. Miami is a 10-point favorite. Adams, Sante, Bain, Clark, Morant, Rose, Smart out for Memphis. Jaquez doubtful and Rozier questionable. There was a report that said that he could potentially make his debut, but it's still the trade is still pending. So if that's luckily this is a 7:30 game, we should have this news in plenty of time. It matters a lot here whether or not Rozier plays for Miami. So let's start with the Memphis side. Talked about Triple J the other night against Toronto. He's just going to keep producing here. They have so many people out. He's going to need to score. He's going to need to take 20 shots a game. Tough matchup. Outside of Triple J, I mean, I think Kennard's price is kind of caught up. I think Roddy, you kind of expect him to play more minutes, but they've been giving Gregory Jackson extra minutes. I think it's Triple J or nobody here for me on the Memphis side.
I think I'm a little bit more interested in some of these ancillary pieces for Memphis. The thing that worries me about Triple J is his price is starting to kind of creep back up to where it should be. And I'm worried about a blowout in this one. Memphis is so undermanned. Miami obviously isn't a powerhouse, but they're still a great defensive team, and they're finally getting healthy. And so I don't think I want to play too much Memphis here, but I think Triple J is totally fine if you land on him. I think Kennard is fine as a last piece. If Tillman starts, obviously Aldama is hurt. He's going to be out. If Tillman starts, I think he's in play. And then Gregory Jackson off the bench, I think, is in play. But if he starts, I think is probably going to be a great value play. And Konchar's still in the starting lineup playing upper 20s minutes, and he's only 4K. So I do think he's in play too.
Going to the Miami side, obviously I think Rozier matters so much. If Rozier ends up playing, I'd probably stay completely away from Miami. I want to see how the rotations would work with Rozier playing. If Rozier ends up sitting, Lowry being out and being part of that trade, I don't think matters a lot. It is going to open up 20 to 25 minutes if Rozier doesn't end up playing in this game. I assume it'd be Josh Richardson who kind of steps into that role and plays 25 plus minutes, but you can't trust him. He stands on the court and does a lot of nothing. So I think if Rozier sits, I think you're taking shots on Hero, Butler, or Bam if you want to. But this is a game where I'm just not super interested. Maybe Caleb Martin at 5K would pique my interest a little bit, but not a great basketball game overall. One of the lowest total that we have on the slate.
Richardson and Martin kind of fit in that same range to me as John Konchar and Luke Kennard, where it's if you land there as a last piece, sure, it's fine, but I don't really want to do it. So I'll probably set a rule in lineup HQ that I'll play maximum 1 player from each of these teams. And if there's a couple of these guys that I land on, sure, fine, that's great. But definitely no targets.
Derek's telling me I look good with my trim beard. I have to go to the racetrack this weekend, so I had to clean up. I had to get a haircut. 24-hour race. If anyone's going to the 24-hour race and wants to say hi, I'll be there Saturday night for sure. Cleveland at Milwaukee, 237 total in this game. Milwaukee 6.5-point favorite. Garland, Jerome, Mobley, Thompson out. LeVert questionable, and then Milwaukee's good to go. Let's talk Cleveland first. Again, I think people are just overlooking how bad Milwaukee is defensively. I know they fired their coach, and it's not going to change overnight. What are we doing here with the Cavs going up against the Bucks?
Yeah, I think we have to have a lot of interest in the Cavs, like up and down. Donovan Mitchell at 9,700. He's just been showing a massive ceiling lately. He only played 30 minutes against Orlando, which is a tough matchup, and almost put up 60 fantasy points. Today in this spot, going up against Milwaukee, going up against Dame Lillard defense, that's best case scenario. I mean, it'll be Malik Beasley defense more likely, but still, who cares? It's Malik Beasley. And so, yeah, I love Donovan Mitchell in this spot. Jared Allen has seen his price tag decrease for some reason. And so at $7,700 Jared Allen going up against Milwaukee, sign me right up. The only concern is foul trouble. If he doesn't get in foul trouble and plays big minutes, he's going to absolutely smash. And then if you want to play the other angle, if you're not playing Mitchell, you're not playing Allen, I think as long as LeVert is out, you can take shots on Sam Merrill, and you can even take shots on Craig Porter Jr.
Yeah, so for me, I love the spot for Allen. He's averaging 52 fantasy points in 2 meetings against the Bucks this season. This is a spot he should smash, right? Like, this is a spot he should do really well. These two teams just played a week ago, really. So last Wednesday, and he had a 21-13 game, some assists. Is always a guy that's capable of stocks. His upside in that is really good. So I like Allen a lot. I love the Mitchell call. Like, point guards against this team this season is smashed. I think you could play these two guys together. They're my two favorite Cavs. If LeVert sits, I think you could take shots on Merrill. He's been playing really good here, and Milwaukee's a great matchup for him. So Okoro is another guy that I think if LeVert ends up sitting, like some extra minutes. But the Cavs are another team that I have a ton of interest in. Like, I've been attacking Milwaukee a lot, and you get one of the best players in the NBA on the other side to run it back here with Giannis. Fantastic spot for him. Coming off of a just incredible game against Detroit the other night, 81 fantasy points. His ceiling is massive. Lillard has upside in any matchup as well. I prefer Giannis if I'm going to spend $8,900 on Lillard. I think I'm just going to find the extra money to get to Giannis. I think his ceiling's higher on a nightly basis. What are you doing here with the Milwaukee Bucks?
So originally I was going to say not much, just, maybe I'll play Giannis, and if not, I'm good. It's a pace down spot against Cleveland. Cleveland's fairly good defensively, not as good without Mobley, but still pretty good. But these prices have just dropped all of a sudden. Why is Chris Middleton $800 cheaper than he was last slate? $6,600 Chris Middleton playing over 30 minutes? Absolutely, sign me up. Brook Lopez has always been a guy who kind of goes in streaks. When he's playing well, when he's hitting his threes, he puts up a lot of fantasy points in stretches, and he's had back-to-back to his two best games of the season. So I think he's absolutely in play. And then in lineups that I'm not playing Lopez or Giannis, I even think like Bobby Portis is cheap enough. You could take a shot, but I just think there's so many great options on the site. You probably don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you wanted to take some shots on Middleton, this isn't the worst spot. I really think that Giannis is the guy I want to pay up for here. I don't mind Lopez because, like, Lopez is going to need to play, minutes in this game. But, I mean, he just played this team, and they absolutely got smashed by the Cavs. So you worry about that a little bit. But I think that this game will be very competitive, and I think it'll be a really good game. So Portland at Houston, 221 total. Houston 10-point favorite. Portland back-to-back, so we won't have an injury report for them. On the Houston side, Easton's out. Bullock and Green questionable. Let's start with Portland. They did play on Tuesday night. Any interest here in Portland?
Everybody plays? Absolutely not. X out the whole team. Easy peasy, done. But their prices are all decent enough that if some of these guys get ruled out, which they probably will be, then they're all of a sudden one of the teams that we want to load up on. I highly doubt that Simons, Henderson, and Brogdon all play. Simons and Henderson have been dealing with illnesses and injuries, have been sitting lots, and Brogdon is old and potentially still trade bait. So any of these players could potentially sit. If Scoot if maybe Brogdon and Simon sit and we get starting lineup Scoot, and if that happens, at his price tag at $5,700, he's almost lock button territory. So it really, really depends on the injuries and the back-to-back. Obviously, this only starts an hour after lock, so we might still get this news. Even if these guys are listed as questionable halfway through the day, we might still get that news before lock. If they all play, I don't really have any interest in anyone except for maybe a Jeremy Grant. If all of a sudden some of these guys start getting ruled out, they'll be one of the best looking teams on the slate.
I don't know if you watched any of that OKC game, but Simons was just playing awful. Brogdon too. I think Brogdon had 6 or 7 turnovers. I know I watched 4 or 5 of them, and Scoot was dealing, man. He had 7 assists. I think he had 18, 19 points. Jabari Walker had a really solid game as well. Price-wise, I mean, Jabari Parker's upside still kind of capped even in this type of matchup, but if everyone plays, I'm with you. I'm probably out. If we are going to get some people ruled out, like you said, Brogdon, Simons, if these guys end up sitting, I think that's where I would attack. But, I mean, this is a team that 9-man rotation, so, there's some upside in taking some shots here. Scoot's probably my favorite. His usage off the bench was great, and like I said, he was dishing. He had 6 or 7 assists.
When Ayton probably sits too, so in this spot. So Jabari Walker, maybe even Duop Reith enters our life again. He played 22 minutes against the Lakers the other day. If we can get upper 20s minutes for Reith at 4,700, that's looking like one of the better values on the slate. So this is really a team that it could be an X out the entire team, or they could be my most exposed team. I really don't know yet.
Yeah, Ayton has been dealing with it was knee tendonitis, so I think that he potentially sits and Duop Reith becomes way more interesting here, getting 28-ish minutes, and Walker becomes more interesting in that scenario too. So you worry a little bit about a blowout. I mean, again, we're not in the business of trying to predict blowouts because it's impossible in the NBA. But yeah, you worry a little bit about this game staying close. Houston side of this one, Bullock and Green matter. Jalen Green being questionable here, it's an illness. So, I mean, potentially, he missed Tuesday's practice. If he sits in this game, I think that would open up Thompson. I think we'd see Thompson at 4,500 become a outstanding value play because, he probably doesn't get, first guy off the court situation in a blowout either. So, Jamari Smith had an incredible game against Utah the other night. We're waiting for Cam Whitmore to shoot again, but I think wait to see here what happens with Green, because if he ends up sitting here, it would be a huge bump to Thompson for me.
I think Thompson is kind of at the point where as long as he's under 5K, if Van Vliet or Green miss, we just play him in 100% of our lineups. Obviously, if they just start pricing him up for just in case, then we'll have to worry about that one day. But as it stands right now, yeah, if Green's out, you play a ton of Thompson. My interest in Houston is actually going to depend a lot on what happens with Portland. Kind of logically, you'd think if all these Portland guys are in, the game will be closer. I'll be more interested in Houston. But I actually don't really care about that because Portland sucks so much that it doesn't matter who's out there on the court. They can get blown out, or sometimes if they're shooting well, they can keep close games with people. So I'm actually going to be more interested in Houston if all these guys are out for Portland, because if I'm not playing any Portland, then I don't really feel that much big of a need to play Houston. Especially if Green's in, maybe a little Şengün, maybe a little Van Vliet. But if all these guys are out for Portland and I'm playing Scoot Henderson and Walker and Reith, and I'm going to be playing 2 or 3 Portland players in each of my lineups, then I'm going to be a lot more interested in Houston, because for these guys to reach ceilings, the game probably has to stay close. And then Van Vliet and Şengün all of a sudden are looking pretty good. Having said that, even if say we get Green out and all these Portland guys out, then I think the Scoot, one of the 2 big men, and Thompson mini stacks is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, and don't game log here and look at that last game and be like, oh man, these guys crushed. Well, Van Vliet was out for that game. It's a huge difference with that's why Thompson ended up starting and getting his first career start. His production and Jalen Green's production, all these guys' production, Şengün's production, all those guys' production goes up with Van Vliet off the floor. So wait on the news on this one and kind of adjust to it on the fly. I think Thompson showed a lot in his first ever start the other night. It was great to see him. He grabbed double-digit boards. So, all right, let's talk about the game that is going to be the biggest headache or the biggest blessing, depending on when we get the news. We got Phoenix at Dallas, 240 total. Phoenix a 1.5 point favorite. I will say I wrote down 1.5. A lot of books have taken this game down. Bol is out. Gordon is questionable. Lee is out. Curry, Luka, Exum, Kyrie, all questionable for Dallas. We'll talk about that in a second. Start with the Phoenix side. Booker, Durant, over 9K. Beal floating in that 7K range. Really tough team to kind of look at right now. Any interest here in Phoenix?
Booker and Durant, I have interest in on their own, and Beal. All three of these guys, I think, are very playable. I don't think I have any interest in any of the extra pieces. Grayson Allen plays a bunch of minutes, and sometimes he's fine. Maybe you include him in your pool if you're playing a bunch of lineups, but he's not a main target for me. I view these guys kind of like the Clippers when all three of them are playing. Like I'm usually down to play one of them, but probably not playing them together. But I do think individually they're great plays. Like we've seen massive ceilings from Durant recently. We've seen massive ceilings from Booker. So yeah, I'm interested.
All right, going to the Dallas side. This is such an interesting situation with Luka questionable. He's dealing with like back tightness, and Kyrie's dealing with like a thumb injury. Exum has been missing a lot of games with the heel injury.
I don't know if this is a hot take. They're both going to play.
I think they'll both play too.
They're both playing, and this is just going to be a regular old game.
Yeah, I think they play too. If they do sit, Tim Hardaway is the best player on the slate. He chucks when Luka and Kyrie are out.
And this isn't even one of those games that if Luka and Kyrie are both out, we get Jaden Hardy at 5K. He's 3,600.
Yeah,
he's absolute lock button. Like he's the lock button of the slate if both of these guys are out.
But I'm with you. I think they both play. Let's talk. We just talked if they don't play. A lot of value, especially if Exum sits too. A lot of value. Yeah. If Luka and Kyrie play, I think it's going to be a very competitive basketball game if they both play. Kyrie has been excellent at home this season. Luka has been excellent everywhere. He scored 97 fantasy points the first time these two teams met. He scored 50 actual points against Phoenix earlier this season. I think it was Christmas Day, right? It was Christmas Day. Put up 50 actual points on Christmas Day. Kyrie did not play in that game for what it's worth. Talk to me with Dallas with these guys playing.
If just one of them is out, I have interest in the other. If they both play, it's probably just Luka for me, but even still, that would just be in a 150 max setting because even though he went off last game, I think I'm going to have a lot of trouble getting up to getting up to Luka Doncic, getting up to Giannis Antetokounmpo, because I would just way rather play Donovan Mitchell and some of these other guys that we've talked about, Donovan Mitchell and LaMelo Ball. Even Devin Booker at $2,000 or Kevin Durant at $2,000 cheaper than Luka Doncic. I like this Anthony Edwards at 8,700. I really like this cheaper range, this mid range of spend ups a lot more than the 11 plus K guys on this slate.
All right, moving on. We have OKC at San Antonio back-to-back for the Thunder, coming off of a closer game than I think a lot of people expected against Portland. They beat them by 2. 241.5 total. Thunder still 8-point favorite. Jones is questionable for San Antonio. We'll talk about that when we get to that side here. But he sprained his ankle, it sounds like, the other night. So I think that is a legit question mark for Jones. But let's start with the Thunder. Thunder keep kind of doing their thing. SGA keeps kind of doing his thing. We talked about Jalen Williams on the podcast yesterday. He has been way more aggressive offensively recently. I like Jalen Williams in the San Antonio matchup. I like SGA. It's one of the best matchups you can get in the NBA. I think we're looking at SGA as a top end play as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a really, really annoying game because if this blows out, everybody's going to bust. If this stays close, SGA could have 70 points. Jalen Williams could have 40 plus. Chet Holmgren could have 40 plus. Giddey could have 35. It's going to be in one of those annoying games. I'm going to be setting a lot of rules with this one and just saying, like, in every lineup, I have Wembanyama play 1 to 2 of Holmgren, Williams, and SGA. And if every lineup I play SGA, have 1 to 2 of Wembanyama and Devin Vassell, and whoever else additionally becomes available if Trey Jones misses this game. So this is going to be one that I'm either stacking or not playing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to approach this game. It becomes a much more interesting game if Wemby was playing 35 minutes, but he's not. They are on a
back. He's getting closer.
Yeah, he is.
Back-to-back 27-27, then back-to-back games of 28. Popovich is a liar, but he has said that they're getting close to being done with minutes limits for him. So I do think like any of these games, not 35, but any of these games, we could see 31, 32 pop up.
Yeah, and like it being in San Antonio, I mean, home crowd, maybe Wemby plays a couple extra minutes and that type
especially
of game.
Against Chet.
Yep. Let's talk San Antonio. I mean, Wemby is 8,300 now. This is a guy that was in the 9K range, and we had interest in him even on a minutes limit. I will say, though, I'm going to be watching this Jones news because if Jones ends up sitting here, I think Sohan becomes really interesting at 6K. But love Wemby. Sohan, if Jones is out. If Jones plays, it's probably just Wemby for me.
Yeah, if Jones plays, it's just Wemby and Vassell. Vassell has just been smashing lately. Not only putting up 15-ish shots a game, but playing high 30s minutes, getting a ton of assists, just being super aggressive, rebounding the ball. So Vassell I would still be interested in too. But yeah, if Jones is in, it'd be just Wemby and Vassell. If Jones is out, like I agree with you on the Sohan thing, but also Malachi Branham is 3K. If he starts, just fire that up. Like we have the potential with some of these injuries on the slate, guys that are questionable, to get some real serious value. And so I actually want to take it back to the beginning of the podcast where you were talking about like a max 2 Charlotte players if a couple players are in, and a max 3 if a couple of those players were out. And I was saying like, no, 3 or 4. I actually take it back, and I think you were correct on that because I just didn't quite realize how high scoring this slate is going to be. Like there's a lot of players in a lot of really great spots.
Yeah, 8-game slate. There's only 2 games with a total under 230. A lot of fast-paced teams, a lot of bad defenses playing tonight. So speaking of that, we got Atlanta.
A lot
Golden
of State.
A
lot of impactful injuries too. That like, we've seen DraftKings all year be like, even if this guy's out, there's no value. Look at the if-then projections. Even if this guy's out, there's no positive RG values. All the best point per dollar plays on the slate are over 10K. That's not really the case on this slate. If guys are out, there's a lot of really underpriced players and some legit value.
Let's keep talking about it. We got Atlanta at Golden State, 234.5 total. Golden State, 7.5-point favorite. Hunter, Matthews, and Trae Young out. Another spot. Golden State, Moody, Paul, Peyton out. Podsy questionable. Let's start with Atlanta. Again, DeJounte with no Trae Young. We talked about it the other day when I was talking about bets and how we should take advantage of DeJounte Murray's point prop. Absolutely smashed. I'm going right back to the well. I'm waiting for them to post it. It has not been posted yet on the Hard Rock. But again, point guard is really strong on this slate. But DeJounte being shooting guard on DraftKings is huge because fantastic spot with Trae Young already ruled out with the concussion protocol stuff. Jalen Johnson, he shot 18 times. He had a really bad shooting night the other night against Sacramento. I don't mind potentially going back to the well on him or Bogdanovich in this one. I worry about Capella getting run off the floor size-wise. So if I was going to play Capella, I'd probably take a shot maybe on Bay. But I think it's DeJounte clearly, and then Johnson, Bogdanovich for me on the Atlanta side.
Yeah, I like that too. I would say probably DeJounte 1 and then Johnson Bay for me, Bay over Bogdanovich, just because of the price. The $900 I think could go a long way on this slate because there's so many guys we want to play. Honestly, because of that, there's so many guys that we want to play. I'm kind of thankful that DeJounte actually is priced up a little bit at 8,400 and not sitting there at like 75, because then it just like gets to the point where it's like, who the hell do I play? I want to get everyone in there. I'm trying to build a single entry lineup. I have a ticket, and all I want to do is MME because there's so many guys in that I want to get in the pool. And so DeJounte at 8,400, I almost feel like, oh, if he goes for 50, I'm fine. If he's not in my lineup, but he also does have that 60-point upside like we just saw. So 100% in play, and rank right up there with the Donovan Mitchells, the LaMelo Balls.
And the thing is, it's not like Golden State's a good defensive team.
Nope.
They've really been struggling defensively. And point guards, they're allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to point guards. So, like, it's a great spot for DeJounte with Trey out. Yeah. On the Golden State side, I mean, another, like, pace-up type of game here. This game's going to be fast. Atlanta plays 5th. Golden State plays 12th. Pace up here for the Golden State Warriors. Podsy matters for me. I think, like, if he ends up sitting, I think Kuminga is someone that is really looking at 30-plus minutes in this game. As much as I hate to say it, I think Andrew Wiggins plays 30-plus minutes here if Podsy sits, and I like pace-up spots just in general. I think Curry is going to be the odd man out, and it feels so weird because this spot, like, this is a spot you could just see Steph, like, rattle off, like, 4 or 5 threes in a row in a quarter and be like, oh, gosh, I hope he doesn't do this all game.
Yeah, I think Steph is in a great spot. He's always in place, always in play for GPPs, and he's going to be going stupidly low owned in this spot because of all the other great guard options that we have, especially at the point guard position. 9,100, there is still massive ceiling there. He's gone for 48 and 51 in the last 2 games. He's shown us close to a 60-point upside multiple times this year. So yeah, Steph's very much in play. If Podsy is in, it's probably just Steph for me, and I don't have any interest anywhere else. If Podsy is out, I think there's more interest in Kuminga, but probably still not like a whole lot else. Like Clay, I guess, is fine, but I just don't know how much is really there in the tank anymore. He's still had a couple solid games this year, but like there's no other way for him to get there. I mean, not that there has been any other way for him to get there ever other than just going off and hitting a bunch of threes, but the likelihood of that just feels a little bit lower now, and that is the true only way he can get there.
All right, I'm going to save my last Golden State take for the morning grind game because my Let's Get Weird GPP play of the day is from Golden State. So let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here for this one. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. Who do you got today?
So injury dependent. Like it could be Malachi Branham. It could be Jaden Hardy. It could be Amen Thompson. As it stands right now, I think I feel very confident about what's his name? DeAndre Ayton sitting. And so I'm going to go with Duop Reef.
Yeah, I like that call as well. I do end up think that he ends up sitting in this game. So I honestly thought you were going to take Jaden McDaniels when you were talking about him earlier, but I don't mind him. Obviously, we're going to be waiting on just a ton of injury news in general here, but mine is kind of more of a tournament. Everyone knows that I like to be contrarian, especially with value plays, but give me Nick Smith Jr. from Charlotte. Rozier's gone. They like this guy. They've given him some run here recently anyway. I think that we could potentially see him slide into that starting lineup for Rozier. Over 8K to go under 5X. Ton of awesome plays up towards the top today. Who do you got busting?
I will go with Bam Adebayo.
Yep, I'm gonna go Dame. I think this is
That was my other one.
yeah, I think this is a Giannis slate. I like Giannis a lot more than I like Dame. So give me Lillard, and I mean Lillard is one of those guys that you hate saying, get weird and like just hate saying bust because he's a guy just when it's Dame time, he just doesn't miss.
He had 75 2 games ago.
He's a beast. Favorite 6x play today?
I will go with. I don't know. If there's everybody, I was about to say 3 different names, and then each time it was like, well, I guess that's dependent on this guy out. Well, I guess that's dependent on this guy being out. This sounds crazy at the price tag a little bit, but I'm gonna say Victor Wembanyama.
Just say Wemby. I listen. It's DeJounte Murray for me. I think DeJounte Murray with Trae Young should be at least 9K. Still underpriced here with Trae Young and concussion protocol. Love this spot for DeJounte Murray. Let's get weird. GPP play of the day. I kind of gave a hint. Mine's from Golden State. Who do you got?
All right, who do I got here? I'm going to go with Daniel Gafford.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to be playing much Daniel Gafford today, so that's that one is definitely.
I take it back. A little too weird. I'm going to go Steph Curry.
All right, there you go. Derek asked me if I'm going to say Looney. I can't tell you the last time I played Looney. Years for sure. Give me Dario Saric at 5,300 here for Golden State. The minutes have been trending in the right direction. If Atlanta does force playing a guy like Okongwu and Capella, I think Sarge is going to be in line for extra minutes in this game. Really like Dario Sarge as a tournament play. He can do it all. He can assist, he can rebound, he can get stocks, and he can score. So Dario Sarge is my Let's Get Weird GPP play of the day. If you are trailing in a big tournament or trailing in a tournament just in general, he's a great pivot if you're looking at maybe somebody from San Antonio or this game in general. So let's go to the betting portion of the show. Any pick'em or player props that you like here?
Nothing aggressively standing out to me the night before. I'll definitely be looking to put a prize picks card together at some point, but they don't have a ton that I'm super pumped up about here the night before without knowing these injuries. And because there are so many questionable tags, there aren't as many available guys that I want to get to because they're like just kind of waiting on so many of these. There's like for total points right now, there's like 34 total players. So not a whole lot up the night before yet.
For what it's worth, if you do play or if you are on Prize Picks or if you're not, well, first of all, sign up through the RotoGrinders links. Thank you. Appreciate it. If you have already signed up, they do have a special this weekend. Get your free square Christian McCaffrey over a half a rushing yard. So don't miss out on that one.
I just found one.
Oh, you got one. Go for it.
Yeah. Jared Allen over 20 or more than 29.5 points, rebounds, and assists.
Yeah, I already bet his point rebound prop at 26.5 on Hard Rock when we were talking about that game. So don't mind throwing the assists in there. I went for the point rebound route. Mine today is LaMelo Ball over 27.5 points. Absolutely love this. He's averaging around 29 points per 36 minutes with Rozier off the floor. Gets one of the best matchups in the NBA going up against Detroit. So I really like the LaMelo Ball over 27.5 points. Hoping we can keep it rolling. Our boy that we talked about yesterday, D'Angelo Russell, off to a good start. So we'll see if he can end the night better than Michael Porter Jr. started the night. TJ, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope, that's about it. Looking forward, as always, to whenever the next time is we link back up. But good luck to everybody today on this NBA slate. I'm going to be hopefully having some kind of sweat with a big ticket going here. And I just looked at the NHL stuff, and I would have had a big sweat battling Cheese for first place in the big GPP today if I wouldn't have switched my goalie. So tilting that a little bit, but I think twice last week I finished like just one spot above Cheese in an NHL GPP. So I guess it was his turn.
There you go. Hope everyone has a fantastic Wednesday. We're back Thursday talking hoops and football. We're going to talk both tomorrow on the podcast with Keith. Have a great one, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow.